Nice to meet you, folks.
We thought rather than preparing any particular subject ahead of time that we would just ask the questions that have been most on our mind about our kids.
About kids?
Yeah.
All right.
This is a parents group, so it's going to be about kids.
All right.
Maureen is going to ask the first question. Dr. Hora, I have a daughter who's about 15 now, and I think I've been really concerned about her self-esteem. She says things like, oh, I'm just a trouser, nobody likes me, and she gets especially depressed and low around the postcard time when the grades come out. And I'm wondering, I feel really concerned, especially when I see her in this condition, and I'm wondering what part I can play that's valid as a parent in terms of self-esteem is concerned.
Well, where does self-esteem come from? Maureen?
It seems like it's thought that you have about yourself.
Yeah. Can you find self-esteem in the drugstore?
It seems like it's related to what I would think.
That's right, Maureen. And what do you think?
So I've been watching my thoughts about her, and before, I didn't really notice any change at 12 in what I was thinking. But now I see that maybe she's a little bit lazy about schoolwork, and...
So you think she's lazy?
Yeah, sometimes, yeah.
What else do you think?
That she's not doing as well as she could.
Yeah. In other words, you are mildly critical of her.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, would that help her to have self-esteem?
No, it wouldn't.
So what is the thought which would provide the healthy self-esteem to your child?
If I could see her as an individualized consciousness and living a story.
Yes, first of all, you have to see her as belonging to God. She is not a child, not your child. And God is taking care of her, and God is providing her with all the intelligence and energy and vitality which she needs in order to prosper well in her studies with the school and socially too. But nothing is more salutary to self-esteem than seeing the child in the context of God, rather than in the context of the family or the school system. And you have to practice, learn to do that here in the context of God, and accept the fact that she belongs to God, and God is looking after her. The critical thoughts, of course, don't help at all. And admonishing, it also doesn't help. Just loving her with a spiritual love. She's knowing that God loves her, and you participate in that love. Agonizing over her performance will not help her to develop a healthy sense of self-esteem. And you're absolutely right when you consider that as crucial. Any other questions, Maureen?
So when she brings a report card, and I can see she's very discouraged and upset with herself, And the best thing that I could do at that time is not to be moved in that same, or not to be hypnotized almost, and try to comfort her, but just to realize that she is feeling love right there at that time. Or is there something that I can say to her, or is it best just to remove myself and try to practice what you just said, to think of her as a child of God and that she is being loved?
That's the best.
Thank
To
you.
comfort her that you are saying, you poor little thing, you failed again, but I forgive you, or I love you anyway. You've personalized the situation. So comforting is not helpful, and criticizing is not helpful. But beholding her in the context of infinite presence of God is love intelligence. So don't self-judgment. Just pray.
Would it be helpful at 16, she is in the children's group here at the Institute, would it be helpful to explore the meaning or just to leave it alone?
Neither explore the meaning nor leave it alone. Just pray.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I have a question. This is John.
Yes, John.
In what way is I had a situation where my children are younger, and it's sort of a constant. There's a constant need for what seems to be structure or a reaction to their or a response to their action, and I've been trying to work with being prayerful and not reacting or overreacting in some cases even. How does that differ from, or what's the danger of that being perceived as permissiveness with younger children? Was that a clear question?
Well, what is the difference between permissiveness and prayerfulness? That's your question?
From the child, yes, from the child's point of view.
Okay. Permissiveness is a form of manipulation. It says, I should be punishing you, but I won't do it because I'm a nice guy. So surely permissiveness is not a solution. And criticism and punishment and nagging and scolding is also not a solution, right?
Yes, I discovered that.
So what's the father to do? In this situation, you have to discern the meaning of their behavior. And you have to understand how to present a new model to them. Could you tell us an example about a problem if you were trying to deal with either through permissiveness or through prayerfulness?
Yes, I had a 7-year-old daughter, which we've talked about before, that she doesn't listen. There's a willfulness there, and you can ask or give a direction many, many times, and there will still be no response. She'll still go on and do what she wants to do.
What?
And my wife's approach is to be very structured and to continue to ask and say and get angry and get frustrated. And I've been the flip side of the coin, which is the I try to be patient, I try to be understanding, I try to be, at the same time, also trying to pay attention to being critical. But what I've found is the frustration gets built up, and then I overreact. And I just start yelling or whatever that comes, whatever response is. So it's dealing with woefulness, I guess, would be the question or the issue that I would like to understand the meaning of.
Now, when you say she doesn't listen, you really mean that she doesn't obey. Isn't it?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
What's the difference?
My perception of what she should do.
Yeah. What you are describing is a child effort at coping with tyranny. She perceives you and your wife as tyrannical. That she is fighting back.
Dr. Hora,
Yes.
From a child's point of view, aren't parents always tyrannical?
No, well, most of the time.
Yeah.
Most of the time, but not always.
No.
Because, you see, the parents, most of the time at school, that they have to manage their children.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think is the difference between managing and guiding?
Mm-hmm.
In management, your parent is trying to be in control, and in guiding, God is in control.
Yeah. Managing could be portrayed as trying to push a string. Ever try to push a string? It is much more intelligent to pull a string, no?
Yes.
The guy there is pulling a string, and it's easy. And management is pushing a string, and the string will not obey. Right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, how could you move from a managerial attitude to a guidance attitude? Both you and your wife. Your wife is not in the group, is she?
No.
No. You could invite her to have.
Yes.
Now, the approach has to be guidance rather than management. Now, what does guidance entail?
Receptivity.
Guidance entails modeling. Being a model of intelligence that functions. Children are extensions of parental consciousness. If the parents are managers, the children will learn to devise counter-managerial reaction. And then we have a battle royal. Right?
Yes.
So maybe you could get together with your wife and pull out the string and put it on the table and show her the difference between pushing a string and pulling a string. And then you could put your heads together and try to work out a change approach. where the emphasis is on guidance rather than on management. Does that sound promising?
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Dr. Hora,
Yeah, John?
on the subject of school and studying and so forth, my little daughter is in kindergarten, and they get 1 report card a year, and it was a lovely report card. And my husband has started a campaign now where he tells her how smart she is all the time.
Yeah, to build up her self-esteem.
Yes, he has that in mind. His intentions are good. We have had problems with my son that we felt were centered around low self-esteem.
Yeah,
And this is the solution he's come up with, and it's not something that we can, he very strongly believes in personal mind power,
yeah.
and it's not something that he's open to discussing. And I started to get worried for my daughter, and I was wondering what I could be mindful, or how I could be helpful without really saying anything.
Well, you can console yourself with the fact that one on the side of God is the majority.
I always forget that. So just the prayerful consideration of one mind.
Right.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Dr. Hora?
Yeah.
This is Hora. I have a lot of trouble differentiating of understanding what I'm managing and what I'm guiding. I don't have much of a sense of, when I'm interfering and needlessly and managing and controlling, and when I need to respond as a parent. For example, my 15-year-old daughter recently started a part-time job, which she enjoyed tremendously, and it seemed to have done a lot for her self-confidence and a sense of doing things well. But I'm concerned that she's working too much now, since they seem to want her to work a lot now. So I have been congratulating myself for stepping in and telling her she can't work so much, and she's resentful of me doing this.
Yeah.
And feels like she can manage her own life. But yet I feel like there are times when she doesn't do good sense, it's kind of swept up with making a lot of money. So I'm kind of struggling with this as to whether to respond like I think a parent should and manage it, or let it be.
Yeah.
Can you help me with that?
Don't you like to make a lot of money?
Do I like to make it? Would I like to?
Yeah.
I suppose, yes.
Well, like mother life.
Oh, you're going to say that.
Work has never hurt anybody, Laura.
Well, I feel it may.
About.
Well, I'm just worried that, she seems she's getting a lot of calls, and, she stays up late trying to get her homework done, and, I feel like she's doing too much.
Let her be the judge of that.
Look, I'm not going to tell her you said that. She'll ask me. No, thank you. Okay. That's just what she said.
Yeah. He must be knowing something.
She knows more than me, I think. Like your word.
Yeah.
My final grade has had low grade through school for really all through grade school, and he's in grade now. And I realized that this is distinctive, and I have never been able to clearly understand what the problem is.
You did get all.
Yeah, it is.
I remember your voice.
Yes, you met Gray too when you were out there.
I met him, yeah?
Yeah.
Yes, I don't remember. Well, he has low grade, is that it?
Yeah.
But he's passing?
He's had friends. His teacher says that he's smart enough to know just how much he has to do to pass, and so that's what he does.
Tell you what, that'd be a very smart boy. So just be grateful that he is so intelligent and don't worry about the grade.
It doesn't just go. Oh, okay, thank you. Oh, it opens a whole new world for Carol. Dr. Hora,
Yeah,
this is Fern.
yes, sir.
Carol and I have recently been talking about this issue about being the parents comparing over the child's grades, they're being on time to things, work or study. And it occurred to us, we were looking into the meaning of our own concern over it.
Yeah,
And it occurred to us that both she and I were raised in families where we didn't indulge ourselves as children and adolescents. We did it right. In other words, we got up early to be on time, and we did the homework ahead of time for our parents' approval.
yeah,
And that part of what we resent or are critical about in our children in fifth grade is they're not doing it right like we did.
yeah, right.
And I was wondering if we continually are being critical, and if it really is the communication that, well, you're doing okay, kids, but you're just not doing as well as I did.
That's right.
And that's like an undermining of their self-esteem.
That's correct.
Thank you. Dr. Hora,
Yeah,
this is Marilyn. I have a son that's 13 and a daughter that's 10, and I haven't worked since my first child was born. Recently, my husband got into a bad business venture and has gotten into debt quite a bit, and I've been considering going back to work. I have a lot of concerns about leaving the children. They're really at the age where we're not. I don't feel right for daycare, but at the same time, I don't like leaving them on their own, and I'm not sure what as being my part in being with them. And I sense that there may be some resentment too. I feel like I'm being forced into going to work when I don't want to.
yeah.
So I'm trying to.
Don't you have to work it out in your thoughts about your husband? It is more a problem between you and your husband, like with that, than with the children.
Uh-huh.
You have to forgive your husband.
Yeah. I'm also trying to understand whether my concerns about leaving the children are valid or not, whether it's appropriate to leave a 10 and a 13-year-old on their own to go to work.
You will only discover the solution after you have forgiven your husband.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are you saying then that whatever seemed the right thing to do now without still feeling resentful, it would not work out well for the family?
Yeah, if there is resentment, then things have to go all wrong, no matter what you do. Resentment has to be uncovered. We have to become aware of it. We have to regret it. We have to reorient ourselves towards being manifestations of divine love intelligence. And then our prayer will open up our consciousness to receive intelligent solutions from God. You see, God doesn't talk to us as long as we are angry. Our prayers are largely futile if we are carrying a grudge. And solutions do not appear until such time that we have been healed from this grudge through the process of forgiveness.
So we would, whether to go to work or not, or whether the children will be okay or not, is really a false concern then.
That's right. That's right. The real issue is your secret resentment of your husband's business failure.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Hora,
Yeah,
this is Jan,
yeah,
and I just had kind of like an awakening this morning to a way that my whole family is. And it's like, out in the world in danger, and somebody can get you, like with people. And in the home, it's safe and loving and good.
yeah,
And it's like I just woke up to that belief system that I've been carrying around. And I just wanted to share it. I don't know what I'm going with it, but it's a big aha for me.
yeah,
Because I'd go out into the world and be with people, and I would think, I'd feel threatened, I think, because their motives were different, and I didn't know what to do with them. Like I had to be God, or I had to be on guard or something.
yeah.
I thought it was all coming from me, I think. Oh, what? Well,
Well, are the other members of your family also fearful of the outside world?
no, but if things don't go right or their way or something, they experience that in the form of sadness or retreating or whatever. I mean, they keep going back and doing what they have to do, and so do I. But it's just, I think the way I grew up was that if you made a mistake, it was really worse than, or when I say a mistake, if you did something and it didn't work out good or you felt good about it,
Yeah,
there was something really wrong with that. But I don't think that they perceive it to the degree that I do.
sometimes we are influenced by television and radio and the newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
So we develop a secret or an unconscious fear of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Because they are constantly bombarding us with evil reports of crime and fraud and hostility and prejudice, all the evil things that we hear on television and radio and the papers can create a certain siege mentality within people where they begin to be afraid even to go out on the street.
Mm-hmm.
And that can grow into phobic proportions. Some people become so scared that they never leave the house. So we have to guard against being intimidated by the media, and always to prayer counteract their influence on us.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very, very contagious thing. Every day, the radio and the television are telling scary stories about what happens to people on the outside. The Mexicans, the blacks, and the Spanish, and the this and that. All sorts of things we hear on them. And we have to fight against it in our consciousness, denying that it is really a danger, and remembering that wherever we are always in the presence of God, whether in the house or in the marketplace. We are always in the presence of God. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. That's how we preserve our sense of assurance.
Thank you. I think I've been affirming that and praying that for a long, long time, and I think that's why now I have this awareness. It's like, part of the time I would believe it, and maybe for a second I would understand that. And I think that's what's coming about for me. Thank you very much. Dr. Hora,
Yes,
this is Raya.
yes,
Recently, the last few months I've seen that I tend to be a tyrannical parent also. And I think what I've been doing is vacillating from being loving and then trying not to be tyrannical.
yes.
and I don't know what is better. I haven't seen the proper way to parent, I suppose. Could you help me with this?
Well, the first thing is to understand that the second principle. Do you know the second principle?
Sure. Take no of what should or couldn't be, but teaching friends to get
Right. Take no thought for what should be or what shouldn't be. Seek ye first to know the good of God which already is. See, what makes us tyrannical is the habit of should thinking. Anybody who doesn't know that the second principle is very easily become tyrannical. The very word of should is a tyrannical word. And you hear it used very often. People without understanding what it does use it, especially in family life. You should have washed the dishes. You should vacuum the living room. You should do this. You should do that. Right? That's what makes us tyrannical. So if you will watch your tongue, you will be healed of tyranny.
I noticed that I try to do that. I tell myself, keep my mouth shut, and then I explode.
Yeah, it's not enough to keep your mouth shut because if you think those should thoughts, or then you are tyrannical. You also have to eliminate the should thoughts from your thoughts. But you cannot, not only that you must refrain from saying them, but you have learned to learn not to think them. You think you could possibly achieve this?
Well, I'm trying. I will continue to try.
For instance, if you are tempted to say, you should wash the dishes tonight, right?
Mm-hmm.
How would you avoid saying?
The dishes need to be washed, and it's your turn. Well, we have a calendar, and we mark all four of us take turns doing the dishes.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's good or not, but that's what
So
we
you can see the calendar one, you and then you have a tyrannical calendar. Well, you can find a nicer way of talking than in terms of should and shouldn't.
Thank you, Dr. Hora.
You're welcome.
Dr. Hora,
Well,
this is John again.
yes, sir.
We've been working with that notion in our house for a couple of years now with the smaller children, and we use like, I would like you to do this, I would like you to do that, rather than should.
Yeah.
But even, I mean, I think a lot of times the perception of the children is, okay, so you'd like me to do it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm getting back around to my issue, which was obedience, but
Right. Right.
is it possible that when we say, I would like you to do something, we're still thinking should?
That's right. That's right.
The other thing that's come up that I've noticed is that a lot of times I'll think with the children,
Yeah.
I'll be dealing with this issue of not being tyrannical and not saying should, but then thinking that my wife should not say should
Right.
because she's maybe not as familiar with the principles.
Yeah.
And that same should thinking has the same kind of
Effect.
effect, that influence to the climate of the home.
I remember one a man who was allergic to this. He said one morning to his wife, "You need to plow the driveway today. You need to plow, or you need to mow the lawn." He said, "Saying, I want you to mow the lawn." He said, "You need to mow the lawn." There are many ways that we stumble over this, but if we are aware of the problem that this should thinking generates, we will find a way of being issue-oriented rather than communicating personally. For instance, it could have said, the lawn, it looks like the lawn needs to be mowed, right? It would be addressing oneself to an issue rather than saying, you need to mow the lawn.
Dr. Hora, if the thought was still, oh, I want you to mow the lawn, it wouldn't change anything, would it?
Well, you have to get used to communicate in terms of issues rather than personal want and should. And then there will be no sense of tyranny. The tyranny arises in interaction communication, where it is our communications are issue-oriented, that if, for instance, if that this law looks like it would need mowing, then the wife would have the freedom either to mow the lawn or to hire somebody to mow the lawn or just to forget about it. Because it would not be a personal communication but an observation of a situation. It is an issue-oriented statement. And if it is meant that way, then it will spare a lot of ill feeling. And we can learn to communicate that way on all levels. To be issue-oriented is the higher wisdom.
Doesn't that also, something came to mind when you were explaining the possibilities? Doesn't issue-oriented thinking and communication keep things open for greater possibility?
Of course. Of course.
Like you said, the wife may be inspired to hire someone or do it herself or
even just forget about it.
or even forget.
All right.
Thank you.
What does it mean in the principle when you say, rather than focusing on the should thinking, to focus on the good of God?
And that's a very good question because many people forget about the second part, about the second principle. Now, we have to keep in mind that the good of God already is. Therefore, there is no justification to shoot anybody or anything. And if you are imbued with the awareness of God's good already is, then whatever you will say will be loving and intelligent. And there will be no interaction. There will be only action. It's always harmonious and conflict-free. So it's not enough to refrain from truth talking and thinking. We also have to maintain an awareness of the fact that the good of God already is. Therefore, we are grateful, we are joyous, we are loving, and we are non-personal.
So it has to do then with seeing that I am here for God.
Right?
In noticing an issue like the dishes, I still my responsibility is still to be joyful and not lose my PAGL
That's
and to
right.
see that God's Spirit is present.
That's right.
Dr. Hora, this is Maureen.
Yeah.
Was it a good idea then to designate chores? Because then it seems like you're in a position of enforcing. Like we exchange jobs at home, and one week a person will do the dishes, and the next week vacuum, and then clean the garage
Yeah.
between the three of us.
Yeah.
And it seems that my husband and I are then in charge of making sure Renee does her chore every day.
Yeah.
And then that's sort of what we've done is to eliminate, do your chore now or whatever. We just ask her, well, what time is the kitchen gonna go clean tonight? It's almost like we're at her mercy in a way. And maybe it's just better to forget the whole idea of chores
Yeah.
until we can really see, or is that a good idea, or what alternative, until we can really see her in the idea of the good of God and ourselves being there.
See, when the good of God is in consciousness, the chores are a pleasure to perform. And there is no need for regimentation. You are describing family regimentation. And the chores will be onerous, always onerous. But if we are imbued with the sense of God's good, or let it be His, we are eager to do chores. We enjoy that.
Dr. Hora,
Yeah.
if the good of God is only in one person's consciousness, does that mean that one person has all the yours?
Well, John, what would you say?
It looks that way.
One on the side of God is the majority.
Yeah.
The mental climate has to be created in a home where chores are eagerly and joyously and lovingly performed by everyone without regimentation.
Laura said you forgot spontaneous.
Octavius, we'll remember next.
I find that the issue orientation really helped us with Bill and I. We have a chalkboard, and on the chalkboard, someone will put what needs to be done. If something is needed at the grocery store, today I just put the dishes need putting away.
Yeah.
Clean and they need putting away. And then I find by the time I get home, if no one else has had a chance to do them, then I do have a chance to heal myself of the idea that they should have.
Bye.
And I can then realize that I'm here for God and I can respond to it if that's the right time for me to be working on it.
But bye. Sure.
And so we can work with it that way and attempt to be issue-oriented while we're working with it.
That is so personal recrimination.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Another way to organize that or to be efficient without people not knowing what's being done, maybe even to ask who would like to do dishes this week, that would be issue-oriented also?
That is still personal, Laura.
Sorry.
That's personal.
Okay.
One of us here being critical of our spouse. And it occurred to me earlier this week, I'm often critical of my husband for some particular habits he had that I think are destructive and don't set a good example.
Yeah.
And it occurred to me this week that the resentment and criticism that I mentally am interested in is much more harmful than his health habits. Is that true?
That's true. Absolutely.
So that if our partner is going about their business and from well-intentioned or not so, or however way they're going about it, then whatever thoughts I hold are much more poisonous and destructive. I don't have to really worry about him being,
Right.
you know.
You can say to yourself, the Christ in me is aware of this, but is not reacting.
And I don't have to, as long as I'm aware of God's presence, I don't have to concern myself with him destroying our family or destroying my, setting a poor example or.
That's right. That's right.
Dr. What did you mean you said the Christ in me is aware? Aware of what? Are you of the destructive habit, or what are you talking of?
The Christ in me is the living soul,
Aware. When you said aware of,
that's observer,
oh,
which is aware of everything that's going on, but is not judging.
I see. Okay. It also seemed to me when you were talking about chores that it seems that tends to be a form where a lot of the mental maturity issues are played out in a family. That probably is a good place for children to exercise their resistance.
Yeah, it can become a power struggle,
Yeah.
of course. It very often is. Power struggle. Tyranny and counter tyranny.
Mhm.
Seeking evasion. And all sorts of cool ideas.
Right. Dr. Hora,
Yes,
this is Fern.
yes.
I just realized as we were sitting talking that when I was a child, I always felt like my mother's slave. She loved to stretch out on a lounge and have me fetch water and magazines. And if she dropped something, I would pick it up. And for many years, I was the only child. So I really felt like I was her little slave. And she loved me because I was so nice at this.
Yes.
And I made a vow to myself somewhere along the line when you're fantasizing about having children that I wouldn't do that to my children, that they would not fetch and do this for me.
Yes.
And so I haven't gotten anywhere with it because what I've done is I'd like them to be afraid. I'd like them to do all that for me, but I want them to like it.
Yeah.
I mean, I still think you're here for me, just like
Right.
she did.
Right.
And I catch myself all the time getting, a shit or an anger because they're not very helpful, but I don't want to be the tyrannical parent that she was.
Right.
And so it's like humanly, there's no solution. You have to come to the point where it's really God's ballgame and not a family picture anymore.
That's right.
But it's very helpful to see that because it just came to my thought as we were sitting together here today.
It's in God's ballgame. Huh?
Yeah.
Right. That's a very good insight, sir. Leave no more.
No more.
Dr. Hora, this is Maureen again.
Yes, Marty.
It's our wedding anniversary, and my husband suggested that we go to a relatively expensive restaurant. And I became very reluctant to spend money that way. And when I mentioned this in the parents group, it was suggested that maybe I felt I wasn't worthy of having money spent in what I can say is sort of a frivolous way, or that maybe I wasn't used to having the best for myself and my family.
Yes.
And I wondered if you could comment on that.
Yes, that is very well possible, Maureen. You have a little bit of a wine in your voice. Wine. And it's crying over yourself. And if your husband would like to go to an expensive restaurant on your anniversary, by all means, be happy about it and go with him and enjoy it. God wants you to be happy and joyous. Self-commiseration is not a spiritual quality.
So self-sacrificing, I find I kind of value that as a mother especially. But that's not really, a spiritual mother would be joyful and generous.
That's correct. Exactly. That's right.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Have enjoyed that dinner. But don't drink champagne.
Doctor, I had one quick question. This is Joan again.
Yes.
I play games with my little daughter in the evening sometimes,
Yes.
and she cheats. She cheats, yeah. She's only 6. And I remember my son cheating when he was small, and he still cheats. So he's 19. The two of them, when they play a game together, cheat each other. And I'm wondering, I would not consciously ever dream of cheating, and I know my husband wouldn't either. It's really very clear that we wouldn't cheat. But I'm wondering what the meaning of cheating is.
That beats me.
She always wins, see?
Well,
She always wins because she
then
cheats.
maybe that is too much empathy about winning.
And winning, yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah. All right, this has been wonderfully helpful. I wanted you to know that we had nicknamed, before today, we'd nicknamed the Parents Club the Managing Parent Club.
Wonderful.
And now,
Very appropriate.
now we'll rename the Parents Group.
Okay.
Thank you. Guiding here, guiding right. Thank you very much, Deborah.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. We have a ring in Make a little t-shirt. How about a t-shirt with the three going? I'm having an absolute whistling. That was really good. Wait, can you read off the bound?